Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. It is a beautiful Saturday outside. I believe it's going to be very hot, so everybody be careful. Our guest today is Brenda Wynn, our county clerk. Brenda, how you doing this morning?
Well, a little bit stressed, but present here.
Stressed because you had trouble getting on this morning, right?
I got technology issues, but
well,
we're here. We're here.
Don't we all have technology issues? Hey, so usually I ask a non-relevant question as we get started, let people in, but I'm going to ask you, have you been watching the Olympics?
I have. I watched some last night. I watched the swimming competition last night.
Okay. Well, I was traveling last night, so I missed some of it, but I got home about 11 and watched the 10,000 meters, which was really great. It was the men's run, and it was really very, very exciting. So have you been watching during the week?
I'm going to be honest and say not really, no.
Okay.
I again watched last night. I think, well, not for the first time, but I spent more time last night watching than I have any other time.
All right. Well, as you know, I have it on right now. There it is in the back. Okay. So if you, if I run out of questions and get kind of bored, you'll see me start looking that way. No, I'm kidding. It's Italy and China are playing volleyball right now. It's amazing to me the caliber and the competitiveness of all this. I love watching it.
The talent of all these folks. These are such talented people, and we need to. Some of us who have lots of opinions need to give up those opinions and allow those talented people to make decisions about their lives themselves. And I'm referring to just some other folks who are being critical of a person who decided that she needed to make some decisions, and they may not have been one that we agreed with, but those are her decisions alone to make, and we need to stay out of it.
No, I agree. And I think she may have done more for overall sports than anybody would like to admit at this point. Good for her.
Yes.
Very, very proud of her for standing up for herself. That's
right.
Pretty darn amazing with as much pressure as was on her. And we had a Nat William win a silver medal. That was great. And so I love watching it, particularly this weekend, because the swimming merges into the track and field, and you've still got gymnastics going on. And I was watching this morning, there were people on bicycles, and they also, Brenda, in case you don't know, they were having some male-female joint competitions.
Oh, really?
So last night, at some point in the evening, they were doing a triathlon, and there were 2 females and 2 males on a team. And so it's a shorter distance, but it was really, really interesting. I thought that was really cool that they're starting to do that. I thought at some point they would have like a relay. I thought when they were talking about doing different things, like, you would have a 4x100 relay, and the first person would run forward, and the second person gets the baton and have to run the loop backwards. But we haven't gotten that far in the Olympics. We'll see how that goes.
Okay.
Anyway, it is 10:04. We have a couple of judges on the call today. Chancellor Pat Moskal is on the phone or on the line, and Judge Amanda McClendon is on. Welcome, both judges. We're glad you're here.
Good morning, judges. Glad you joined.
Good morning. Good morning to you both. Thank you for the work.
Judge McClendon. Yeah. Hey. How are you? Everything is good? You've been watching the Olympics, Your Honor?
Very good. Thank you for the shout out, and thank you both for all the hard work you're doing, especially through the pandemic. There's been so many accommodations you both have had to make.
Well, everybody's trying really, really hard, and we appreciate all the stuff the judges are doing too, because I know it's been particularly difficult on them in terms of trying to either not have court or have court without anybody there. It's been really, really interesting to watch.
And good morning. This is Chancellor Pat Moskal. We've been keeping the courts open either through Zoom or in person with masks, and we're getting it done. So thank you. It's good to see you today.
Thank you, Chancellor. Thanks for being on.
Thanks for joining us.
So I will mention one thing before we get into this. And I saw a message that came through a little while ago about Austin, Texas, and that they're running out of ICU beds. So everybody be careful. You know, even though things open back up, we knew we were not out of this. Vaccination rates in Tennessee particularly are low. And it's not like the pandemic went anywhere. We just pretended like it did, and it didn't. It didn't go anywhere. It is still very much a part of what we're doing. I think you'll see, we have a council meeting on Tuesday night. You'll see me wear a mask. I'm going to start wearing masks again. I think that's relevant, and I think it's just a way of trying to be protective of everybody. I have a cold, so I've been wearing it anyway. But I think I'm gonna go back to wearing masks. I think that's probably the right thing to do. So anyway, speaking of that, Madam County Clerk Brenda Wynn is our guest. I think your folks wear masks as well. Is that right?
We do. We require all of our staff to wear masks, even though there are barriers in all of our locations now. With help of COVID funding, we were able to install barriers at all locations, but we still require all of our staff to wear masks at each location. What I'm seeing though is about, better than half the people showing up here don't wear masks, but again, it is a personal choice right now. So they're recommended, but not required.
Right. All right. So my first question to all my guests, and I know you've been watching our show, so you probably know what the question is, but first question is, tell people who, everybody knows you and loves you. At least I think almost everybody loves you. But tell people who don't know a little bit about yourself.
Well, how much time do I have?
For that question, you have 30 seconds. No, you have as much time as you want.
Well, I tell people, my story is I consider myself native to Nashville. However, I wasn't born here. I was born in North Carolina while my dad was in the military. And by the age of 2, I was back here. I grew up in Nashville, was raised eventually by a single parent. My mom and dad split. And we moved from East Nashville, started in East Nashville, moved from East Nashville to North Nashville. I grew up in John Henry Hale Public Housing. There were 5 of us kids in the family. I went to Pearl High, went to elementary school and throughout the whole public schools. Went to public school to the public schools here in Nashville. Started at Head, went to Washington Junior High, and I finished high school at Pearl High School. Left Pearl High School in '74, went on to Tennessee State University, where I got an undergraduate degree in business administration, and then went back to TSU in 1986 and started work toward a master's in business administration, finished that in 1989. I started my career working for the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County. In fact, the summer between high school and college, I went to work at an agency called Model Cities. I worked at the Model Cities program until the agency became community development. It was a part of MDHA. Well, it was prior to MDHA, but went to work for community development and stayed there from 1974 to 1979. Left Nashville, married, left Nashville and came back. And when I got back, tried to get back on with Metro, but couldn't. But I ended up working in a not-for-profit community. Worked for United Way, Edge Hill Community Center, a program called Peace that counsel male batterers. Left Peace and went to work at Meharry Medical College for then President Dr. David Satcher, and spent 9.5 years at Meharry. Left Meharry and went to work for Bill Purcell as the first director of the Mayor's Office of Neighborhoods, and left that the mayor's office. I went to work in 1999 there. In 2003, went to work for Congressman Jim Cooper. And then in 2012, had the great fortune to have the Metropolitan Council appoint me as Davidson County Clerk. Started in this office in August of 2012 and stood for election that year. on the ballot in November, and one election by the people, have been reelected two additional times. I plan to run for another term. I will be on the ballot next year. Qualifying deadline is February. The election is in May, and primaries in May. General is in August, and so hope to be elected then. I've been married now for 42 years. I've got 3 marvelous sons, and I've got 6 wonderful grandchildren and a fabulous husband who deals with me day in and day out. And I want to give a shout out to all of them and tell them all how much I love them.
What a great story. Huh?
Did I take up too much time?
Well, it ran a little over the 30 seconds, but I gave you some additional time, so that was
well.
fine.
And then, the other thing that I want to say is, I volunteer throughout the community with a number of organizations, but I want to say that I'm a member at the Temple Church, where we have engaged in the community for a number of years, and I think some of my church members may be on the call this morning, so if they're out there, I'll say shout out to you guys. And the other thing I want to say about coming here to the clerk's office is that when I got here in 2012, I found a wonderful staff of folks, and a great number of them are still here with me today. And so I thank them for the work they do all day, every day, throughout the year. So.
Well, I'm going to ask you a lot about the clerk's office in just a second, but go back to the Model Cities program that you talked about. What was that back then?
It was Model Cities was a program. Well, I worked in a program called the Emergency Rehab Program. And what that program did was to train high school dropouts in the construction trade. Model Cities was a federally mandated program that was offering job training and community development in the Nashville area. And you have to know that my brain is a little bit foggy, again, because of my involvement with the emergency rehab program. That's where I have the most recall from, but worked at the emergency rehab program, left the emergency rehab program and went to the community development program, which eventually became Metropolitan Development and Housing Agency.
Okay. Well, that's interesting because I think there's something called Model Cities now. There's different programs, Living Cities. There's all kinds of different programs that go on. And I'm always interested to hear what these programs do and how successful or not successful they were, because it seems like we always are trying to come up with something new, and then we end up going back to what we were doing before.
What I think that the thing that was the most memorable about what we did at Model Cities was we trained high school dropouts in the construction trades, but at the same time, we repaired homes of elderly or disabled people who couldn't afford to do it themselves. And so it was improving neighborhoods, improving the community, and improving the lives of people by investing in their homes and repairing their homes, bringing them up to code if they weren't up to code. There was roofing repairs, there were plumbing repairs done. It was just, and I think the program went on for quite a few years out at MDHA, where they still provided those kinds of services for people who couldn't afford to do the repairs, but got them done through the work of that agency.
And so those repairs were done for no cost? Is that what it was?
There was absolutely no charge to the person receiving them. There were income requirements. You had to meet income standards, but again, those repairs were done free of charge.
Interesting. All right, mark that down. We may want to go back and look at that program. All right, okay. So you're the county clerk.
Mm-hmm.
So I write checks to you every year, or just to the county clerk, or maybe there's a stamp. So for people who don't know, what do you do? I mean, you're involved in so much of our lives, you and your staff, probably more than we probably know. So tell us about the county clerk's office. What does the county clerk do?
Well, I tell people that if you operate a motor vehicle in this city, you have involvement with our office, because you title and register new or used cars through this office, and you renew your registration every year here at this office or through this office. If you want to operate a business in the Nashville community, you get that business license here in this office. If you want to get married, we issue marriage licenses here in this office. And one of the things that's happened since COVID is that we used to offer marriage services. We used to marry couples every Wednesday morning without fail. We'd sign people up and we'd marry them. I am thankful to some of the judges now, Judge Brothers and some of the other judges do that for us because they have more space. But again, getting married in this town is something that we did, and we love to do it. If you have a boat and you've acquired a boat and you want to register your watercraft, you do that here in this office. If you want to be a notary, you get your notary application and you register for the notary here in this office. And as an aside, the Tennessee legislature this year have approved notaries to solemnize marriages. So notaries can now marry people. We process passport applications here in this office. If you want to vend on the sidewalk downtown, you have to get a sidewalk encroachment permit through this office. Pawnbroker licenses, and most folks don't know that, but pawnbroker licenses come through our office. And let's see, did I leave anything out? Motor vehicle business, marriage and notary, watercraft, passports. We have a kiosk. We have a kiosk in this office, and it works. Sometimes it works, sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't. But that kiosk will allow you to renew your driver license. And so, and it's a Department of Safety function, but we have it here as a service to the public. If you are a disabled person, you can get your disabled placard or renewed here in this office. And if you want a green parking permit, Jim, you know what those are. You guys approve those. You can get a green parking permit through this office. Did I mention transient vendor license? And what that is for people who come to town and sell items, novelties, whatever, at conventions. They have to have a license to do that. And we issue those licenses here in this office. I hope I didn't leave anything out, but that's most of the things that we do here in the county clerk's office.
So I'm exhausted with all the stuff that you do. All right. So if I wanted, first of all, how do people know that you do this? So if I'm a transient vendor and I'm going to show up at a convention, who tells me that I've got to go get a license from you? Do I just have to figure that out, or what happens?
The venue where you would operate will make you aware of the fact that you need a transient vendor license. There were times in the past, and I say in the past because we no longer have the capacity to do this, but there were times in the past when an individual from the county clerk's office may just show up at a convention where somebody might be vending and may ask to see the transient vendor license. That's not what we do anymore. But again, the venue typically will make a transient vendor aware that he needs a transient vendor license. Okay,
so I have in my mind those old Westerns where people would, ride into town and then they'd have they'd get on some stage and they'd be selling some elixir that is supposed to cure stuff. That's who you're sort of talking about, those people who are transient. They're moving through. And so back in the old days, would they have had to gone to the county clerk's office, or is that something newer now?
Well, they would have, and that license can be obtained online and by mail. And so our services, even though a lot of people believe that they have to walk in the front door here to get every service we provide, there are some things that you do have to show up for in person because the state requires us to make sure you are who you say you are, and so you have to provide certain identification. But in some cases, you don't normally have to come in here. For instance, if you want to renew your registration on your car, I am really trying to encourage people, if you're going to be using a card to do that, do it at one of our kiosks. We have 8 kiosks located around the city where you can renew your registration. Last year, I think some 44% of our registration renewals were done either by mail online or at a kiosk. And we're trying to make the service more accessible. In fact, one of the newer locations that will come online pretty soon for the kiosk will be at the Bordeaux Library. And I'd like to share all of the locations that we have these kiosks. There is one outside of the Howard office building. It is weatherproof and it operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All you have to do is walk up to it, scan your registration, and answer about 3 questions and insert your credit card, make the payment, and your decal is printed right there on the spot. We have another kiosk that's 7 days a week at the Graces Plaza, where we have one of our locations, and it's in the lobby of the Graces Plaza, right outside our office. We have one at the Bellevue Library. We have a kiosk at the downtown library. We have a kiosk inside our Madison location. So if you are at the Madison office and it's really, really busy and they're lined up outside the building, go inside, use the kiosk. It's really easy. It's really simple. And then we have another kiosk at the Southeast Library. It's in the lobby where the book return is, up in the Hickory Hollow Mall. And then there's one inside our South location on Harding Road.
I think that's all of them. Yeah.
That's all 8. That's all 8 of the kiosks. Now we have 6 locations in this city where you can access our services. So if you think that you only have this location to come to, you can get motor vehicle services at any of our 6 locations. Now, marriage, notary, and business license applications, those things have to be done at the main office. I don't think I mentioned that if you needed a duplicate title, if you've lost the title to your car, you can come to this location and now walk out with a duplicate title. There used to be a time where you had to wait on that, but that's a service that we can provide right over the counter right now.
So I'm always losing stuff like that.
Okay.
I'm losing all kinds of stuff. So how do you find out? Do you go to the website do you all have a website that says, hey, Jim Schulman, you lose everything. Okay. So if you've lost these items, we can provide you with a copy of it.
www.nashvilleclerk.com. If you go to that website, you can click on some of the links will take you right to the online application. For instance, if you're getting a marriage license, we encourage everybody now to apply for the marriage license online before you get here. It saves you time, it saves us time, and so go online and access all of our online services. You can download applications for the business license. You can download application for the transient vendor license. You can download your application for the passports and other forms that you need in order to process work here. You can find on our website, NashvilleClerk.com.
Okay, how many? So you told us where the kiosks were.
We have 6 locations. I need to tell you what. Okay.
You have 6 locations. Where are they? And then after that, I've got a 2-part question for you after that.
All right. Our main branch is here at the Howard office building, 700 2nd Avenue South, Suite 101. We have a location up in Madison at the old Madison Library, corner of Heritage Drive and Old Hickory Boulevard. We have a location in the North Police Precinct, or the Bodenhammer Police Precinct, right off of Clarksville Highway. We have a location in the Graces Plaza, 2nd floor, Green Hills. That's 4009, I believe, Hillsborough Pike. It's right next to Trader Joe's. We have a location in the South Police Precinct, which is on Harding Road, right behind the Sam's Club. And we have a location in the Hermitage Police Precinct, which is right across from the Hermitage Library on James K. Lane.
And you're at each of those locations all the time, you personally?
No, personally, no.
You can't be all 6 places at the same time?
Every now and then you might find me at a branch. And in fact, we had an issue one day where we had an absence and needed somebody at the North Precinct. So I went and sat down and I did renewals all day long. Oh, all afternoon for sure.
All afternoon.
Yeah,
Cool.
somebody got sick and had to go home. And so I went out and did renewals.
Okay, so here's my 2-part question.
Okay.
If I have to go to your office, and let's pick the Howard School building. Here's the 2-part question. When is the best time for me to go, and this is very special for all the people listening, when is the best time for me to go when I'm not going to run into a big crowd? And the second part is, when is the absolute worst time to go?
Okay, well, I'm going to answer the easy part first. People line up outside of our door at the main branch and at almost all of the branches before we open. Our main branch opens at 8 o'clock in the morning. We close at 4:30. We try to get our last customer in here. If you're processing title work to title a new car, we try to get them in here at 4:20 because we know it's going to take at least 10 minutes to do that work.
Yeah.
And so from 8 to 4:30 here at this office, people line up outside. Best time to get here is right after we finish serving those people who have lined up outside. And I say to people, it's between 9:10 and 9:30 any day of the week. If you're coming on a Monday, it's going to be pretty busy because Mondays and Fridays are our busiest days. And I understand that. That's because there are financial requirements associated with accessing our services. People have to have the finances in order to access the services. So people come when they have resources. And typically, if you get paid on Friday, you got money left over come Monday. And so, but anytime, Monday through Friday, right after about 9:10, between 9:10 and 9:20 is a good time to come. Worst time to come, lunch hour. And my office allows me to see the entryway to the building, and I can tell you when the lunch hour is, not by the sun, not by the clock, but by the number of people lined up outside the building. And most people believe that, it's a lunch hour and I'm going to go right then on my lunch hour. But the problem is most people who come have that same idea. And here's the thing, we're going to serve you as best we can, as quickly as we can, as efficiently as we can. But the lunch hour is probably not the best time to come. Yesterday, and the last day of the month is the worst time to come. The last day of the month, yesterday, we had 1,058 people in this location, just this location, not the other ones. Security keeps account of how many people come in the door here. 1,058 people, and he didn't count the kids. Okay, he said he didn't count the kids because, again, he didn't believe they were here for services, and they weren't yesterday. On days when they come for passport services, they can be counted, but we typically don't count the kids. So it was crazy busy here most of the day yesterday. At about 10 of 12, there were 2 people in the line. And at 12:37, I went back out front and they were lined up all the way through the lobby. So
end of the month, lunch hour, Friday.
End of the month, lunch hour, Friday. And I tell people, guy told me yesterday, he said, they ought to be moving faster. They're just doing registrations. I said, well, it's not quite that simple. I said, for instance, there was a gentleman who had not driven his car since COVID started. And so there are things that you have to do in order to update that vehicle in the state system. And I had separated the line based on who was just getting a renewal and who was titling and registering a new car. And so I said to the guy, you're in the renewal line. And so this one will go a little faster. However, that line over there is for people titling and registering new cars. And that's when he went ballistic. He said, all of those people with cars? I said, yes, sir. All of those people with cars. And most of them new to state, Jim. I tell people of the how many people come to Nashville every day? How many come to Nashville every day?
Well, 100 new people?
100 new people. 90 of them got cars. Okay.
Yeah.
So 90 come by and see us.
Have you seen an uptick based upon the fact that we have so many people moving here and, all these people and them creating new businesses, blah, blah, blah. Can you see it? Can your staff feel it in the sense that there are more and more people coming in for stuff?
It feels that way. However, when we look at the numbers, our numbers dropped a little bit during COVID. And they started to pick back up again. Our numbers were higher, I think, in 18, 19, but again, have we've not quite gotten back up to where they were, but we are doing more with respect to business licenses. I mean, back during COVID, the number of people showing up to get business licenses just kind of blew up. I got some numbers. I had somebody to give me numbers because I wanted to share some accurate figures on business licenses. In FY 18-19, we issued 6,989 business licenses. In 2021, we issued 8,501. So we absolutely issued more business licenses. The other numbers have not gone up as notably, but the business licenses absolutely went up, and especially after COVID.
Okay, a couple of questions about how your office operates. So usually when I come in, there's usually a man sitting or a female sitting over to the left at the Howard School building. Information, I think, is that what that person is there for?
Well, she's not just doing information. That's Miss Rhonda Hardy, and Miss Rhonda is basically a receptionist. But Rhonda also Rhonda processes paperwork. She processes title work, and so in addition to greeting customers and answering questions and providing assistance, she's processing work. Nearly everybody in this office, very few people do just one thing. They all have to multitask. In fact, the people in our phone bank area wear headsets. And so they move around the office with their headsets, answering calls and taking care of other work.
Okay, second question.
Okay.
With all the people coming in, I've never come into the office where people haven't been very professional and very courteous. How do you do it? How does your staff has always been so nice, and I'm sure that they can get frustrated, and because people can be frustrating, obviously. How do you keep your staff calm and sane when you have that many people coming in?
Well, they get customer service training, but every now and again it can get a little painful. I mean, in fact, yesterday we had a gentleman who was really upset that he didn't realize that he had to get an emissions test before he could title and register his car. And I want you to ask me about the emissions test too, because again, we need to talk about it. But at any rate, he got upset and he was yelling. He was very loud. And at any rate, we got him to calm down, and we got him to leave. And what we say to our clerks is we typically try to give them attaboys, pat them on the back, to say to them, we appreciate your patience with this customer. If I truly had one wish, that wish would be that people would treat the people who do this work with a whole lot more respect, because what I've realized is that sometimes folks take for granted that what people do here is something that anybody could sit down and do. And that's really not the case. It takes years to learn how you apply the state law, applicable state law that allows you to title and register a car. And so there are times when people get a little ugly. I mean, I've been called a few names myself, but what you do is you just suck it up and you just keep moving.
When you said you give people attaboys, I thought you were going to say a medication. I thought it was something else. Keep everybody calm during the day.
No, in fact, the young man who had the rowdy customer yesterday, before the end of the day, he had gotten an email saying, "You handled it well. Thanks for what you do." Yeah. Good.
That must be because you don't know. I know people get frustrated. Yeah. But I'm sure that can be very difficult on everybody. So your folks are cross-trained, right? They can go do different things. And do they basically know where they're going to be during the day? Or is it, look, you go to your regular stations, but we've got people who are sick over here, and so everybody's going to have to move, or we're going to have to, how does that work?
Well, typically what happens is that at the beginning of the day, once we've had a chance to listen to the call ends or to listen to the phone messages and know whether or not somebody has a family emergency or whether or not somebody's sick or they have a sick kid. What we do is we send people from this location to other locations to make sure all of the branches are staffed up. Motor vehicle work is the bulk of what we do. And so it requires us to have fully staffed locations. We have typically minimally 3 people at each location, except for our North Police Precinct. There are 3 people at the North Police Precinct on Mondays and Fridays, but typically North is our least utilized location. So that's why we staff it with 2 people. And what we've done there was once COVID hit, we decided that we would just close at 12 o'clock for lunch, because that way you could keep the same people in that location, not be bringing people in and out. And so, but at any rate, we closed that location at noon for lunch. And so if you come down here sometimes and there are just a few people who are who on the line, know that their people are either out filling in at other locations. They may be on break, because we have to give people breaks. We give them breaks in the morning, breaks in the afternoon, and they get a lunch break. And that's the other thing I want people to understand. Federal law requires me to let these people go to lunch. We start lunch hours in this office at 11 in the morning. Lunch hours go to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we close at 4:30. So, but we've got one person who gets a 3 o'clock lunch, because we have to spread them out to try to keep adequate staffing in place to serve the public. And again, we understand that that's what we're here to do, and we want to do it the best way we possibly can. I want to give a shout out to the Metro Council that restored some funding of mine that will allow me to add 2 more people to this location. We've got 2 people starting this coming Monday to start the training. And it typically takes you 6 months to a year to get the kind of knowledge base that allows you to be comfortable doing this work. And so I thank you guys for providing me with the funding that allowed me to raise the salaries here. We pay people better now. And it's just great to know that these folks can come in making a little bit above a living wage here in this office. And the other thing that I'd like to, and I know you didn't ask me, but I'm gonna share this. They've got the Grand Prix race here in Nashville next weekend. And so accessing this location is gonna be a little precarious. You'll have to, if you access it, you'll have to come in from Interstate 40. Coming up First Avenue or down the Korean Veterans Bridge is going to be difficult. What we hope to do next Friday anyway, because I think the road shut down on Thursday, but we hope to staff up the branches outside of this office to send more people to Madison, because typically I've got 4 people at Madison. I got somebody on vacation now, and I tell people we have to let folks go on vacation. And so, but we're going to staff up those locations. And if you find it difficult to get to us here, please access services at any of those other locations.
Do those people driving those cars have to be titled? Do they have to come by and get a registration from you?
They will not.
Right. Maybe that should be part of the race. Part of the race is that they have to drive by and stop, get out of the car, and come in and get a title. Okay, so tell me, how many staff do you have, and where does your budget come from, basically?
Well, we are budgeted for 83 staffs, and funding comes from the city, from the general fund. We, however, generate fees and commissions from all of the services we provide. In fact, one of the things that I was really proud of was even during COVID, while our funding went down, the fees and commissions that we generated during COVID was almost 2 times my budget. And pre-COVID, I think one of those years we generated $9.6 million in fees and commissions, and our budget was $4.2 million.
Okay. So basically, you bring in more than you actually.
We generate more in fees and commissions than it cost us to run this location. Now, I'd like to have a little bit more of that, because I'd love to, at some point in time, be able to allow people to to queue up to come in here. I'd like to have a queuing system where people could go online and check and see how busy it was, and they'd be able to sign in or queue up to come in to get the services they need. I'd like to see the state allow us to do this work electronically. We're doing so many other things electronically. And my prayer is that eventually we will be able to title and register motor vehicles electronically. I mean, you can provide the identification that you need to if we're talking face to face on FaceTime. And so again, at some point in time, when we can get to electronic titles, we hopefully will be able to serve people and title and register cars electronically and not require you to have to physically come into the location to get it done. That's not where we are yet, but hopefully we can get there. Emissions.
So every county has a clerk, right?
Every county in the state has a clerk. Yes, there are.
And
90,
so you're
95.
part of a clerk. You're part of a clerks association, I assume.
I'm part of the, yes, Tennessee Clerk Association.
So you can go, and a lot of these things are prescribed by the state, and so you can try to get some of this stuff fixed or generated through state legislation. Correct?
We can, in fact. And one of the things that most folks may have noticed is that we haven't had a new license plate in Tennessee since 2006. I think that's going to change. In fact, we're hearing that that's going to change next year, that there will be new plates. And some of the legislation that was introduced in the General Assembly this year will allow us to charge $1 more to mail that plate, because mail fees have gone up. But in order to charge more, we have to get that legislation approved through the General Assembly.
Okay. That reminds me, then I'm going to go to emissions, but I got one more question. The license plates.
Okay.
How many different types of license plates are there?
Jim, I don't know the answer to that. I'm going to admit that I don't know, because there's so many. We have a book that's full of them, and they're more and more being added every year, especially with the specialty plates. And so just know that there are lots to choose from. If you want a specialty plate, just understand it's going to cost you a little bit more. If you want to personalize your plate, you can do that too. It's going to cost you a little bit more, but just know that all of that can be done. And typically you do that in coordination with our office and the Tennessee Department of Revenue.
And do you have all those plates back there? We have
a plate room. Yes, we have a plate room, and that room is full of plates. We have racks and racks of plates in this office. And so, yeah, we got tons of plates. They're everywhere. They're not everywhere.
That should be on a tour. That should be on part of the tour of people who are, they should come by.
We can't do that because that's secure stock. And so we have, okay.
Well, maybe you can just give us a picture of what it looks like. That'd be good. All right. So anyway, I think that's really interesting. Emissions. Talk about emissions. And obviously that goes back, and it's changed over time over the last couple of years. What's going on with emissions in Davidson County?
Well, emissions, as far as I understand, has always been the responsibility of the Metropolitan Health Department. It's an EPA standard that some counties in Tennessee have to adhere to. There's one county that just decided they weren't going to do it. But what I understand is that they said that the emission standards in that city changed because of the closing of a factory. However, Middle Tennessee counties have to pass. Vehicles in several middle Tennessee counties have to meet emission standards, and they therefore have to be tested and have to pass tests. It is not our requirement. Again, even though it applies to your motor vehicle, it is not my requirement. I can't waive you getting an emissions test. The health department does have things that you can do if you're having problems passing emissions, and we always try to get people to work with the health department. There are a few things that can be done. I mean, and I say to people, if your check engine light is on and it's time to renew your motor vehicle registration, don't take the car through emissions, because if the check engine light is on, typically you won't pass. Every now and then your car will pass the emissions. But I'll give an example. I've got a 1997 pickup truck, and most folks who know me have seen me in that white pickup truck. I've had it since 1997. And earlier this year, I looked at it, I said, oh, it expires the end of July. So I was in it, went to pick up something, because again, don't drive it every day, but I went to pick up something and noticed that the check engine light was on. Well, on the way back, the check engine light went off. Well, the very next morning, I got in that thing, went to the emissions test site, and this was end of May, 1st of June. Went to the emissions test site, got the truck emissions tested, drove it on to work, and on the way home that afternoon, the check engine light came back on. But it passed emissions that day. And if you're within 90 days of your registration expiring and your check engine light goes off, by all means, go in, get that emissions test done then, because your emissions test is good for 90 days.
Okay.
And so that's just a tip. It's good for 90 days. And again, as long as the light is off on my vehicle, I pass. And when the light was on a time or two, I failed. And so
you took it in, it was at the end of July when the registration was going to end?
I took it it was either the end of May or the first part of June when I went and had my emissions test done. Yeah, I renewed my motor vehicle registration yesterday at the kiosk.
Okay, what I was going to ask was, why do you do it so early? Why don't you wait like everybody else until the very last minute and then realize that you forgot, and then you have to do it the first part of the next month and then rush over?
How about on my way in this morning, I come from Goodlettsville. I drove down Dickerson Road. There's an emissions testing site there on Dickerson Road. And I saw a truck or something sitting there, and I thought, oh, there's been an accident. But the closer I got, what I realized was that there was a line of traffic down the side of the road, and they were all waiting to go in and get their emissions test done today.
Yeah, because today is what, July 31st?
Today is July 31st.
Yeah, so we always wait until the last minute.
Well, but you don't have to.
Yeah, I know it's a requirement. I think we have to wait until the last minute. I always do anyway. I don't know, I forget, and then I have to go rush over and do it.
Okay.
So I've got one more Clerk's question, and then we've got about 10 minutes left, and I want to ask you about something else. Okay. So over the span of being the county clerk, how many people do you think you've married? Do you have any idea?
It's been over. I think there was a time when I knew that it was over 4,000 couples.
That's amazing. So yeah. I think I've married about 40 couples. That is truly amazing that you've done over 4,000. It
was over 4,000. And again, it's just delightful because people are their happiest then. And so you're just glad to be a part of their lives when they're at their happiest.
I like that. And then when I perform marriages, the question came in, how many are still together? Do you keep up with that?
No, sir.
Do they have to respond back?
I try not to. In fact, the other day, I found myself working in the marriage department, and a woman came in to get a copy of her marriage certificate. She needed a certified copy because she was for insurance purposes. And she said, "You married my husband and I." I said, "Oh, wonderful. How are things going?" She said, "Well, it's tough sometimes." I said, "But you are still married." She said, "Yes." So.
Well, I'm batting about 80%, I think.
Okay.
So I'm doing pretty well. I only perform marriages of people I know who are going to stick together, I think, or at least try to anyway.
There's no way to know that.
I know.
So we just have to pray for them and hope that they will all stick together.
I agree. Okay, so we've got about 10 minutes left. I want to ask you, particularly because you're really almost a native Nashvilleian, except for maybe 2 years right there at the beginning. So you've been here. I've been here over 40 years. It's been interesting to watch the change in the city. So what would you say in terms of just being Brenda Wynn? And you've done such amazing things over the course of your career. Biggest change in Nashville?
Biggest change. Well, I think that when I go through neighborhoods and see the changes that have happened there, it's kind of mind blowing. I tell people I learned how to drive in the Gulch. and it was not what it looked like now. The Tennessean was there when I learned to drive. There were none of the buildings there. It's the change, it's the growth, the change, the community and how it's changed. I grew up right at the foot of the Capitol in John Henry Hale Public Housing Development. And when I look at the hotel that sits there on the site where Haddock's Pharmacy used to be, and the reason that I know that's where Haddock's Pharmacy used to be is because my sister and I worked at Haddock's Pharmacy growing up. I look at the fact that you've got HCA sitting in a spot that used to be the Modern New Era Club or thereabouts in that area. There was again, just the growth and the change in neighborhoods that I've seen through the years is what's mind blowing. And again, it's rare now that I go anywhere that I don't see construction, development, and all those things going on. And I go, wow, when did that start? When did they do that? Because again, things seem to change almost regularly now. And there was something that I noticed yesterday, and I thought, wow, I didn't know they were doing that.
Well, I see buildings pop up all the time that it's like I was driving through and it's like, where did that come? What is that? And where did it come from?
Where did it come from?
I forgot about driving down Charlotte Avenue, like on the way to the state capitol. I know where Haddock's Pharmacy used to be.
Right.
And now there's now a hotel that's in its place, I think.
Right.
And I remember where, I kind of forgot where HCA and where the new, where there's a public.
The Modern New Era Club.
There was a nightclub there.
There was a nightclub. And if you were headed into downtown toward the Capitol, it was there on the left. I look at NES over there, and that's one of those staples. That's one of those things that has been there because I remember as a kid growing up, going down to the light company because if we didn't have anything to do, we would go for walks and we would go to the State Museum or to the Parthenon and we'd stop and get water at NES. So.
Well, that building's never going to move. That thing looks like a castle.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. We hope. I don't know. We never say never, right, Jim?
Well, we never say never. That's
never.
Right. All right. So let me ask you this, based upon your view of Nashville. We got the same question to a number of different people over the course of a series of these conversations. And it was, if you had a magic wand and you could do something to fix something, what would you fix in Nashville?
I would fix what happened with the interstate cutting through our city. I remember walking on the dirt there in that space when they were building the interstate. Again, because I lived in a public housing development that's just to the west of the interstate. And so when you look at how our community was, well, the African-American community was cut in half and basically decimated, then and you see how much it destroyed businesses. We lost homes, and so if I could wave a magic wand, I would ask that those folks who were making those decisions would have been more thoughtful about what they were doing.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that answer. Good answer. All right, going forward, what do you think? What do you think about the city? I mean, I look at it and go, how do we deal with this? And from a county clerk's perspective, you're going to, if this many people are going to be moving in and more businesses, do you see it just continuing to grow and expand?
We've got to manage it better. We really do have to be thoughtful about how we manage the growth that's happening here. We've always said we don't want to be Atlanta, but we're getting close. I look at our traffic patterns now, and I used to be able to go anywhere in Nashville in 10, 15 minutes. That ain't so today. I mean, you better factor in half an hour to an hour to try to go anywhere. I mean, when I've tried to leave this location, which is less than a mile from downtown, and to go to the courthouse, and sometimes it's taken me 20 minutes. not a mile away, but it takes me that long to get there. And so I think we've got to be really, really thoughtful about how we manage the growth here, about how we improve traffic flow. Because again, if we're going to get around, and people do want to get around, we don't want to always be stuck in traffic. We got to be more thoughtful about this.
Yeah, I asked a couple of people the same question over this past week, because I was downtown doing different things. I was talking to people who had been involved in some of the development downtown. And I think their overall concern may be around transit overall, about how do you get around in a city that is growing that much, and particularly in the downtown area where there continues to be expanded development. How are you going to move people through?
Right.
And that's going to be really, really interesting. And it's either going to involve, a more, I know the mayor's office has a plan. The city rejected the bigger transit plan, but at some point we're going to get stuck down here, and they're all going to be coming to your office because they all need some type of permit or license, and you're going to have that many more people. So just be ready.
Well, and because everybody, again, we still aren't, if we don't have the right kind of transit system, we can't give up our cars, right?
Right. That's right.
And,
so you're going to have that many more people. All right. So
right.
Go ahead.
No, you can go.
Well, I was going to say the last question today had come from a viewer who said, basically, the county clerk's office does everything from A to Z. And the question was, how do you do it with such grace?
Well, it's not always full of grace. And I will admit that. I confess that some days it's not grace. I mean, I have had my fair share of frustrations since we've gotten to this era, because people have gotten to be a little less sensitive about how you communicate with each other. I mean, I had a guy to suggest that we not let people go to lunch during peak hours. And so my question to him was, well, then what is a peak hour and what time do you go to lunch? And so I just confess that it's not always with grace. Yesterday, the gentleman who got upset, he said he'd been in the office for 2.5 hours when he'd in fact been here probably 20, 30 minutes, because he was on a walker and everybody in the line let him go ahead because he was on the walker. And so, some days you can just laugh about it, and some days you don't. The days when they talk about you, your mama, and your grandmama, you don't have as much grace. And so that's happened too. However, we know what we're here for. We are here to serve the public. It is our jobs, and we understand that. We will do that always to the best of our abilities. I take my hat off to the people who sit on that line, because sometimes some of the abuse, because sometimes it is abuse. Sometimes some of the abuse they take is just so unnecessary. And one of the things that I've said to them is, after you finished serving a difficult customer, you need to bring the next customer over and say to them, I'll be right back. I said, go to your supervisor and say, I need a minute here to get myself back in check. And so they know that they have my permission to take a minute and to regroup. And I say to them that if there is a difficult customer and you need to step in, I'll always be the bad guy. I don't want them being the bad guy. I will be the bad guy. So it's not always grace, but it's always with the understanding to the customer that we're going to respect you. All we ask is for that same respect in return.
Well, kudos to you. Kudos to your staff. I'll tell you something I've never told you, but ever since I've been a Nashville resident, the name that it's just me, but the name that sometimes I associate with Nashville and the overall view is the county clerk. Maybe because, whether every year I'm writing a check to the county clerk, the county clerk's name is on different things. And I'm so appreciative of the fact that you're there, because it makes me feel good about the city. because when I know that, again, because of the expansive nature of what you do for Nashville and Davidson County, it's so nice to have such a great person in that office. And so I'm
Well,
so appreciative of you. And I just want to say thank you.
I thank you for that wonderful comment. But again, I give all credit to the people who do this work all day, every day. They are wonderful folks. They work extremely hard. And to people who think that government employees are slackers, not true, not true at all. I've got people in this office today. I got here and I saw cars outside that I recognized. And I walked in the door and there are 5 women doing dealer work. Cars in Nashville are selling like hotcakes. One week we got 2,700 deals to process. And when you got 5 people doing that work, that's a lot of work to be done. The next week we got over 3,000. And I own up to the fact that we're running a little bit behind because it's just so much. They are selling so many cars now that we just can't keep up. But when I walk in the door here to come do this show with you, I didn't have to come in today, but there are people out there working. And so to the public, I say that these folks here work hard, extremely hardworking, want to do a good job. Every now and then we might mess up, but just know it is our goal to give you the best possible service that we can and to try to always do it with a smile.
You're doing great. Thank the folks who came in on Saturday. Thank your staff that works every day during the week to help us continue our operations.
And tell people the next weekend, with things, with us being hard to get to, if you need our services and it's just motor vehicle work, try to access the branches. We're going to add staff there so that we can serve you as efficiently and as expeditiously as we can.
Got it. All right. So next weekend on our show, we're going to have Lucy Kemp, who's head of our planning department, going to be talking about the East Bank and the East Bank River project. So everybody tune in. Everybody stay safe. There's a lot of stuff going on in Nashville, a lot of stuff coming up this weekend and next weekend and the weekend after that. There's always something going on here. Brenda, thanks for being a guest on my show. You're great.
Thank you for having me. I didn't say that in the beginning. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about the Davidson County Clerk's office.
You do great work. Thank you. Thank you for what you all do. All right. Brenda, thank your staff as well. Again, everybody be safe this weekend. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll see everybody next weekend. All right.
Bye-bye.